Welcome to the second edition of the Pro Wrestling Podcast video edition. We're going to go over everything that happened in Raw. Let's get right into it because there's a lot to cover. The opening segment of Raw last night was phenomenal. Roman Reigns coming out to a hail of boos. He's the man who ended The Undertaker's career. He's the man who retired the Phenom. And now he gets into the ring, coming out with... I've been a wrestling fan for as long as I can remember, since I was 4 years old. I've never seen a wrestler have so much nuclear heat as Roman Reigns does right now. He comes out to the ring. He's got all this heat. When he gets out there, he can't even speak. He picks up the microphone multiple times, trying to cut a promo. Every time he tries, they won't let him. Finally, he brings it up after maybe 6, 7, whatever minutes, trying to get the people to calm down when they wouldn't. Finally picks up the microphone and says, "This is my yard now." Drop the mic, walk out of the ring. I actually loved this opening of Raw. Usually we get a half an hour of conversation that bores me to death. This was perfect. Really sets Roman Reigns up. He's still being pushed as the good guy, but he's really the bad guy. And they really, I don't think, have a clue what to do with the guy. And they still somehow want to build him up for WrestleMania 34. So, interesting way to start the show. I'm not even sure who they're going to have him feud with next. I don't think it matters. I think he's feuding with the fans more than anybody, and I'm okay with that. This offers a lot of opportunity going forward. He's the next big hated character. So, moving on from there, our first match of the night is one that a couple weeks ago we could only have dreamt of seeing. I think some people had the hint that we would see the Hardys at WrestleMania. I don't know if everybody thought they were going to win the Tag Team Championship or that we'd be seeing them on the next night's Raw defending the Tag Team Championship against Gallows and Anderson in their rematch. Gallows and Anderson looked relatively weak in this match. They had a good match back and forth. There was some physicality there. I enjoyed the match quite a bit. It's almost like a nostalgia act seeing the Hardy Boys perform now because they don't do the same kind of wrestling when they're acting as their broken characters. Now, I hope that they do win that lawsuit and bring the broken characters to WWE at a later point in time. But what this does right now is it gives you a few months to do the nostalgia thing with the Team Extreme. And then whenever they clear things up with the broken characters, if the Hardys do get ownership of that, you can bring those characters to TV and refresh the Hardys all over again, which I think the fans would really appreciate. For now, enjoy that you got them, because you've got them on the biggest stage in the world, and they've really brought some legitimacy back to the tag team division on Raw. Going forward after the Hardys match, you've got what I thought was a very interesting and very telling segment. I think they are starting to get behind some of these cruiserweights, at least from a booking sense. Neville is out bragging about his win over Austin Aries, announcing that on 205 Live there's going to be a coronation of sorts, which is awesome. I'm cool with that as well for the king of the cruiserweights. But he gets interrupted by Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali comes out, he cuts his own promo, gets in a ring, challenges him to a match, which ends up being, for me, might have been the match of the night. Now, the sin of the whole thing is there were fans all over the arena more concerned with a beach ball being smacked around than they were worried about watching this match, and that's a total travesty because these guys really tore the house down. They did a great job, tons of high spots. Mustafa Ali is just impressing me every single week. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite wrestlers on 205 Live. They made him look very believable that he can give Neville a run for his money. Hopefully that results in some other good booking going forward. Neville does pick up the win, which you'd have to expect coming out of such a high-profile win, and with the announcement that they're going to do the coronation, you kind of had to expect that that was what's going to happen. But still a solid match, and it does a lot for Mustafa Ali's character and his booking going forward. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. The next segment is the most important one of the night. Vince McMahon comes out. He has a few announcements. One, next week there's going to be this superstar shakeup. Instead of having a draft, they're going to do superstar shakeup because I guess using the word draft right around the NFL draft time would be a bad idea. I think it brings in more press. But they're going to have this superstar shakeup where trades and things like that could take place next week. You'll see Daniel Bryan will be on Raw. They didn't announce that, but we found out today. But Daniel Bryan will be there next week. They'll make some roster shifting, and it's something that's overdue and necessary. I sometimes think they should do that mid-year, just every 6 months or so, just to give the product a fresh feel for the players that aren't doing anything, for the Jinder Mahals, for the Curtis Axels, for the Bo Dallases. Move them around a little bit. See if you can get them to catch some lightning in the bottle somewhere, and maybe you can make something out of some of your mid-card talent. But in the end, we'll see that next week. He also announced that after WrestleMania, Stephanie McMahon is going to be on the shelf for a little while because of her getting knocked off the ring apron and through the table. I guess she shouldn't have been up there in the first place. Should she have been, Vince? So anyways, Stephanie's out. He has to announce a new Raw general manager. He announces it's someone who was just put into the Hall of Fame. We all know what's coming, and he introduces Teddy Long. Except we all, I think for a moment, had to breathe a sigh of relief when he kicked Teddy Long off the stage and announced Kurt Angle, because you know the way WWE books. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this would have made no sense, which is exactly why they would have done something stupid like that, trying to outsmart the smart marks and put Teddy Long in there instead of Kurt Angle, who we've been expecting all along. Now, my only concern with this is I really want to see Kurt Angle in the ring. And when you put somebody in the general manager role, it takes a certain amount of time to build up the kind of heat that you need to be able to be considered a threat to another wrestler to set up a match. Look how long it took Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan before The Miz finally really got in their face. And then eventually you get the AJ Styles Shane thing. That took, better part of 6-8 months. And I don't really want to wait that long to see Kurt Angle in the WWE ring. I just don't. So, but at least we have Kurt Angle. He came out, he made a comment, "It's good to be back on Monday Night Raw." Oh, it's true. It's damn true. So, welcome back, Kurt Angle. The next segment is the New Day. They come out, they talk about how WrestleMania was amazing, the hosting was fantastic, but they didn't have a match. So they throw out an open challenge, which is answered for the moment of the night, the introduction of the Revival on Monday Night Raw. The tag team division on Raw just got an insane jolt of energy in the arm by adding the Hardys and the Revival. I can't wait to see those two teams mix it up somewhere down the line. As they come to the ring, they destroy the ice cream truck, which I'm so happy about. That's another stupid gimmick, but whatever. New Day put on a decent match, but this is a match between the longest ever Raw Tag Team Champions and the longest ever NXT Tag Team Champions, and you really had an opportunity here to tell more with the story. Instead, it was, I'm not going to say it was a squash match, but it was pretty close. The Revival get the win. You had Xavier Woods going for the honor roll. It gets countered. They hit the Shatter Machine to end the match. Revival win, and then after the match they attack Kofi Kingston, setting up like an injury angle where they have him in a submission hold and then they're stomping on his leg and all that. I think they're doing that for one of two reasons. Either Kofi actually does have an injury, or they want to write him off in some way to make a change to the New Day, or maybe they are getting sent over to SmackDown. It's between them and Enzo and Cass. I'd be okay if they both went over there just to legitimize that brand's tag team division, but we'll have to wait and see. You go to the next segment, you've got Enzo and Cass. They're in the back with Kurt Angle, who's in his office. As they're in his office, they start explaining to him he's a bona fide stud, certified G, all that nonsense that they say every freaking promo that they do. I'm tired of hearing it. I loved it for the first 3 months, and I've been hating it ever since. But he's a certified G too, and they start talking about Cesaro and Sheamus, who they're going to face later in the evening in a #1 contenders match for the Tag Team Championship. When they do this, the funniest moment of the night probably is when they start calling Enzo, or when Big Cass starts calling Sheamus and Cesaro SAWFT, soft, and Kurt Angle gives him a look and he's like, "That's not how you spell soft." Kurt Angle pulling off comedy always works. It just does. Go to the ring. We're going to have our next setup. It's going to be a 6-woman tag team match, and I don't even understand the booking of this. Dana Brooke, who got obliterated a couple weeks ago by Charlotte, is on the good guy side. She's a babyface with Bayley and Sasha Banks, who Sasha Banks was being teased as a heel at one point. Now I guess they've given up on that. They're going against Nia Jax, Charlotte, and the returning Emma, who I don't know if Emma was supposed to be a good person, bad person, or what when she was doing the Emelina videos and transitioned back to Emma, and now I guess she's a bad guy. They come out, they have a relatively decent 6-woman tag team match. It's one of the only 6-woman tag team matches I've seen. They don't do this very often. They got all the big stars out there. Just having Emma and Dana Brooke more actively involved kind of gave it like a fresh feel. But it's still the same of the other 4 women we've seen over and over and over. It's time for a change. Or if you're going to change something, if you want to really make an impact, take Charlotte and put her against Nia Jax, because I've been dying to see that. Which, coincidentally, at the end of the match, after Bayley's team picks up the win, Charlotte gets in the face of Emma and in Nia Jax, and she starts trash talking, and it leads to Nia Jax completely laying her out, which I love if they're going to make that a feud. If they're going to move Charlotte to SmackDown, which is the word coming out right now, is that she may be making a move to SmackDown, I don't like that. I would have loved to have seen Nia Jax and Charlotte get in the ring a couple times before we see her make the move. 2 of the biggest female stars on the brand, 2 of the biggest build, biggest bodies, buffest, toughest. Put them in the match. Let them have a match. Let them tear the house down. And if you're not going to do that, you better put that on Raw next week when you're divvying up the teams and separating the brands some more, because that's a match you're missing out on. Unless you're going to hold that off for something like WrestleMania next year, I'd be okay with that too. I don't have a problem with that. Sami Zayn is in the back. He's trying to establish a relationship with Kurt Angle. He hopes that it's going to be as good as the one he had with Mick Foley. Kurt Angle, he lets Kurt Angle know, he's like, I'm not Stephanie McMahon's #1 guy. You know, he's very tentative about that. And then as he's complaining about the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, here comes Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal is somebody who, in my opinion, I've said this before, they really need to figure out more to do with the guy because he's a lot better than they let him look like on television. He's got the right look. He's jacked, but he's not too jacked, and he definitely has some serious skill. So I wish they would do something with him. They get him in this segment where he's arguing with Sami Zayn. Kurt Angle tells him they're going to handle it in the ring later in the evening, so we know that match is coming up at some point. We go to our next segment is going to be Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar coming to the ring, carrying the Universal Championship. Paul Heyman goes into this almost satirical fairy tale kind of thing where he's explaining that once there was this superhero who came to town with his spear and his jackhammer, and I thoroughly enjoy every time Paul Heyman speaks. This storytelling thing, it actually worked for me. It's just my opinion. He comes out, does all that. Coolest part of the promo, though, is Paul Heyman when he's referencing, you know, we're never going to have to see Goldberg again. He says, thank you, Undertaker, and thank you, Brock. Undertaker for his career, Brock for getting rid of Goldberg. But I love that he threw out a thank you to the Undertaker. I think Paul Heyman, in some way, he is given a little more latitude than almost anybody. Maybe Daniel Bryan is the only person who has the kind of latitude that Paul Heyman has to do the right thing by the wrestling business. And there needed to be some kind of shout out to the Undertaker from Paul Heyman in that situation. They go on to have a conversation about Brock's looking for his next opponent, and the next opponent, it could be Roman Reigns, it could be Matt Hardy, it could be Jeff Hardy. And after they're waiting to figure out who the next opponent's going to be, you cue the music and here comes Braun Strowman to the ring. Braun, I have stood next to Brock Lesnar before. People who know me in my personal life, some of the viewers who tune into this podcast have seen pictures of me next to Brock. Brock is huge. He looked dwarfed next to Braun Strowman. I would be afraid to see what I'd look like next to Braun Strowman. That guy would make me look like a midget. I'm just saying. Braun Strowman comes out. He starts cutting a promo about, you know, he's so concerned with Roman Reigns. You know, when he gets finished with Roman Reigns, you know, maybe he'll turn his attention to Brock because Brock got his attention and he's got the belt on his shoulder. Brock does, and he shoves him in the shoulder in the belt, making it very clear what his intentions are. The face-off with these two is pretty cool. Brock lays the belt down in the middle of the ring. They stand across from each other looking over the belt, and they did the right thing from a booking sense. They had Braun Strowman step away and back out of the ring, kind of the way Brock does whenever he's playing the heel role. Save the fight for another day. This could be a very cool match going forward. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how they book this thing. They have a segment in the back with Chris Jericho. Jericho is out talking about how he deserves a rematch for the United States Championship. Then he announced he's going to get that rematch. I would assume he's going to get that at Payback. It'll probably be his last major match before he leaves the company, go on tour with Fozzy. In the meantime, he was supposed to be a tag team match. Seth Rollins comes in. He's supposed to be teaming with Seth Rollins, but Kurt Angle thinks he's not in any condition to wrestle tonight. So instead, he will find him a tag team partner for later in the evening, which, you know, for all of us out there, we already knew who was coming, but you still have to build it up for the people who are the fly-by-night wrestling fans who don't tune into podcasts like this and had no idea who the tag team partner was going to be. But at least you knew you were going to see it, and you had something to look forward to in the main event. You move on, you get that #1 contenders tag team match, Cesaro and Sheamus versus Enzo and Cass. Rumor has it Enzo and Cass are headed to SmackDown. This was a great way to write them out of the tag team picture on Raw and move them to SmackDown without totally burying them. The ending was phenomenal. You get to see Enzo goes up like he's going to hit the splash off the turnbuckle, and you have Sheamus catch him, throw him into the air, and you see Cesaro hit him with the European uppercut and totally lay him out for the victory. Very cool way to end the tag team match. I was okay with that. It's going to make for a great match with Cesaro and Sheamus going against the Hardy Boys for the tag titles. I appreciate that they're giving Sheamus and Cesaro a premium spot again. I don't think they had a long enough run with the championships to begin with. I don't feel Gallows and Anderson did either. But I guess they were just trying to generate excitement in the brand. I would have liked for them to have left the titles on Cesaro and Sheamus to begin with. But if you're going to give them the Gal Anderson, I would have preferred you would have given it to them when they could have had a more substantial run too. It's kind of like the Bray Wyatt thing over on SmackDown with the World Championship. Some people actually need a longer reign. We move on. You have that completely meaningless Sami Zayn versus Jinder Mahal match. I will never in my life understand why this match was even booked. Totally worthless. Sami Zayn, hell of a kick, picks up the win. I guess it's filling time, keeping Sami Zayn on television so you don't forget about him because it's so easy to, the way they book the guy anymore. And then you get to our main event. Main event, Samoa Joe, who had virtually no involvement whatsoever with WrestleMania. What a loss of another year that we have to wait till we see Joe step into a WrestleMania ring. If I was Joe, I'd be livid that he wasn't at least in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I thought they would have put him in there just to give him some kind of role as a show if he wasn't going to interfere in the Seth Rollins match. I don't understand why you wouldn't use such a huge draw on your biggest card of the year. Same thing with Finn Balor. He's been wrestling at all the house shows. Why would you not feature him on your biggest show of the year? I get you want to pop ratings on Raw the night after, but Joe was already out. It's not like Joe was a secret surprise. We already knew Joe was there. He should have been at WrestleMania. Instead, you get the tag team match the night after. Joe and Owens are out in the ring. They're waiting. Here comes Seth Rollins, and then interestingly enough, Seth Rollins had to have a special sanctioned match the night before because he's not allowed to wrestle because he can't get clearance. Except as soon as that match is over, suddenly he's got clearance and he can get in the ring on Monday night. And he comes in, and here comes the returning Finn Balor. Huge pop from the crowd. There's almost nobody right now, except for maybe The Undertaker, who has the kind of crowd response that he gets when he enters the ring. It is phenomenal. The interaction, the playoff with the people, I love it. It's actually my favorite entrance in the business right now. He comes out, this match, there's so many underlying storylines, whether it's he and his partner, Seth Rollins, who last time he was in the ring, they were fighting for the Universal Championship, or is it Seth Rollins versus Joe because Joe jumped him, or is it Seth Rollins versus Owens because he took the Universal title from him, or is it Owens and Finn Balor from all the way back in NXT, or is it Joe and Balor from their issues with NXT? The only people in this ring who don't have a conflict with each other is Joe and Kevin Owens, and at some point, that has to happen. I'm looking forward to that. Either way, this match was actually very serviceable. They get in the ring, a lot of good spots, a lot of good action back and forth. The ending sees Finn Balor head to the top rope and hit the coup de grace for the win. He hit all kinds of stuff in his match, Sling Blade, all that kind of fun stuff. Very entertaining match. Very, very solid way to bring Balor back to television. They pick up the win. After the show, Goldberg does come out and he cuts a promo. He brings his son into the ring who can't even get over the barricade. He falls on his butt, which Goldberg cracks a joke and says, "Look at that, my son's already taken a bump. That's more bumps than I've taken in my whole career," which he's not far off. If you count the jackknife powerbomb from Kevin Nash at Starrcade when he lost his undefeated streak, or the Suplex City and F5 at WrestleMania, that's pretty well the only bumps he really takes. So pretty accurate. Came out, thanked the fans, thanked his family. This was all for them. And he goes through the whole thing about you may never see him in the ring again, but he ends it with exactly what you wanted to hear, the whole never say never. WWE has been very happy with his run this time, and this really opens up the opportunity for them to do some business in the future. I hope they do. That's all we have for this episode. Please check back with us, episode 61 of our audio podcast, episode 3 of our next video broadcast. Don't know how often we can do the video thing, but I'm going to do it as often as we can for you guys because we appreciate your support all over the world. And until next episode, take care, everybody. Have a good night.